Ever feel like you're working harder and affording less? That's not just you, it's the UK economy. Let's talk. Alright, so living in the UK right now is kind of like being in a group project, where no one's doing their bit and somehow you're the only one who's paying for everything. Sounds familiar? Prices are up, wages feel fake. You can't even buy a Twix without considering a second job. So what's really going on with the UK economy? And why does it feel like we're just all stuck? And let's be honest, half of the time the headlines sound like satire. UK inflation at 3.4% in May, down from 3.5%. Or Bank of England holds rates at 4.25% amid slow GDP growth. Are the new normal? Politicians argue, economists point at graphs. But it's everyday people feeling it in their weekly shop. Let's start with the basics. The UK's economy has basically been through the ringer. First, we had Brexit, right? That created massive trade friction. Businesses now deal with more red tape, more costs, and a shrinking pool of EU workers. Before Brexit, we traded freely with Europe, our biggest customer. Now, UK exports to the EU dropped by about £20 billion in the first year after we left. That's not small change. And UK firms hiring staff from the EU, that got way harder. Skilled workers left. Hospitality struggled. Farming suffered. It's like we kicked the ladder out from under ourselves. Then came COVID, which smashed global supply chains. Every country got hit, but the UK's bounce back has been meh. In 2023, our economy only grew 0.1% in the first quarter, basically nothing. Meanwhile, the US and other parts of the EU grew much faster. Why? Well, our economy was already fragile, and COVID just exposed the cracks. And then the energy crisis. That's been a killer. When Russia invaded Ukraine, wholesale gas prices in Europe surged to historical highs. The UK, which relies heavily on imported gas, saw household bills double. Businesses closed. Pubs, shops, cafes all hit hard. Some estimates say around 1 in 5 small businesses came close to shutting down in 2022 to 2023 due to energy costs alone. Inflation went off the rails. We hit over 11% in October 2022. That's the highest in over 40 years. To put that into perspective, if you had £100, it lost over 11% of its value in just 1 year. And no, wages did not keep up. So, how does this hit us regular people? In basically every direction. Have you noticed your grocery shop creeping up lately? Yeah, that's inflation working overtime. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. Here are a few big ways this mess shows up in your everyday lives. Let me break it down. 1. Pay isn't keeping up with prices. Maybe your salary went up a bit, but if inflation went up faster, then you're actually earning less in real terms. It's like running on a treadmill that's also on fire. Real wages, that's wages after inflation, fell for most of 2022 and 2023. People had more pounds in their pay packet, sure, but those pounds could buy less. Imagine getting a raise and still needing to borrow money to afford a weekly shop. 2. Interest rates. The Bank of England raised them to 5.25%, which might sound abstract, but it means loans, mortgages, and even credit card payments are way more expensive. Say you've got a £200,000 mortgage. Just a 1% interest rate increase could add around 120 extra pounds a month to your payments. Now imagine that rate jumping from 1.5% to 5%. People are literally being priced out of their own homes. 3. Rent and housing. It's a joke. The average rent outside of London is now over £1,200 a month. And in London, you're lucky to find a studio flat that's under £2,000. Some people are literally renting beds in shared rooms. And even if you can afford to buy, congrats. You're now paying £400 to £500 more a month than you would have 2 years ago because of interest rates. No wonder first-time buyers have dropped by over 20% in some areas. Alright, so why isn't this being fixed? Well, it's a bit of a mess. The Bank of England kept interest rates at 4.25% in June, but they've cut from the previous high and is signalling they might go lower. That balancing act between stimulating a weak economy and containing inflation is a tightrope over a crocodile pit. And the government? The big move is fiscal discipline. Cutting back, trying to lower national debt. But growth needs investment, and there isn't enough. So you've got the bank slowing things down, and the government refusing to stimulate things. We're stuck between a rock and a policy PowerPoint. We've been coasting for over a decade, not in a relaxing sangria on the beach way. Productivity is flat. Businesses aren't investing. And wages are just stuck. Employers are still only offering 3% pay rises, slower than inflation at 3.4%. So real incomes are being squeezed. And let's not forget the labour mismatch. Businesses are crying out for skilled workers, but graduates are stuck in low-paid roles. We've got a skills gap the size of the Channel Tunnel and an outdated education to boot. And there's another factor we can't ignore: public services. NHS wait times are still shockingly high. Local councils are going bankrupt, and transport infrastructure feels like it's being held together by duct tape and vibes. Underfunding in these areas doesn't just impact quality of life, it slows down economic growth. A healthy, mobile workforce is the key to productivity, but when people are waiting 18 months for surgery or sitting in traffic on crumbling roads, nothing moves forward, literally or economically. So, where is all this going? Inflation is still running at 3.4% in May, hovering well above the Bank of England's 2% target. And despite plans, living standards are set to stay depressed until 2027 or even 2028. 1 in 4 people skipped a meal last year. Food bank use hit record levels, and grocery prices jumped 4.7% in the first half of June alone. But it's not hopeless. Some ideas include investing in green energy, digital skills, and childcare to drive long-term growth. Also on the table, fairer taxation. UK billionaires saw their wealth jump by over £55 billion during the pandemic, but nurses only got a 1% pay rise. We're realistically looking at another 4 years of this scrappy period, unless we go big on change. Oh, and if we don't build reasons to stay here, we risk brain drain. Young pros are choosing between offers in Canada and Australia. Some economists are even calling for a full rethink of how we measure economic success. GDP alone doesn't capture quality of life, environmental sustainability, or social well-being. Should we be pushing for a well-being economy like New Zealand and Finland are experimenting with? It might sound idealistic, but when rising GDP doesn't stop rising homelessness, you've got to ask, are we measuring the right things? Alright, so where does that leave me and you? Well, tighten your belts, keep an eye on your money, and maybe hold off on that dream of moving out unless you're ready to sell a kidney. But also, don't switch off. These economic decisions matter, and we need to be louder about what's working and what's not. What do you think needs to change? Should the government spend more? Should we tax the rich? Nationalise cheese? Seriously, I want to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments. If this video has helped explain things, give it a like, maybe a cheeky share, and hit the subscribe button so that we can keep making sense of this madness together. Cheers for watching. Hang in there. We'll get through this, even if we have to budget for bananas.